Yes, and let's just say I've had many of an opportunity to when to zip it and just smile. And yet, a wilting flower is never going to survive in this industry. You have to be a strong, confident woman, and yet, not be very careful about tripping over that line as well, too. Initially, I can say, and I've said this many times over the years.
Totally believe that unless you learn to develop incredible skills in relationships, success in business and in life is always going to be challenging. But today we get to have an expert here, my friend Deborah Brandt, who is the founder of Brandt Design Group. Deborah, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be a part of this.
Deborah, I'd like to launch right off. You have been in this industry for over 30 years. You've won multiple awards.
Yes.
You've done projects in Singapore. You've done projects all over the state. Sorry, excuse me, Thailand, not Singapore.
Right, Thailand. I was going to correct you on that. Yes.
And you've done, I'm sorry?
Multiple projects in Bangkok, 22-story hospital, a 9-story hospital. Because there is so little land in Bangkok, things tend to go very high.
So thank you for that, for a good visual for the listeners to get this. So you've had projects there. You've had lots and lots of projects right here in the United States, won lots of awards. My question is, after so many years in the industry, what is the biggest thing that you would believe is an important factor in working with so many variety of individuals? You got CEOs, you got architects, you got construction firms, and a slew of other individuals, and multiple projects going on at the same time.
Stakeholders from the executive management of the hospital, executive management of the architectural firms, because the majority of the time my contract is under the architectural firm, and you're interacting with all the consultants, mechanical, electrical, structural, civil. I mean, there's at least 10 to 12 consultants that we all have to collaborate and work together.
On any one project.
On any one project.
So what is the biggest thing you've learned after all these years that can make a difference in communicating?
Only one thing, you say, only one thing. As the old saying goes, learning when to hold them and when to fold them, and when to zip it and just smile.
I love that.
Because the bottom line is, when you work on a hospital project, ultimately it's all about creating an environment for the patient's family and friends, and all of these different decision makers working together, which all have little different agendas. You've got the executives, you've got the management, budget, you've got a mechanical who's got his own needs, you've got the architect. There's so many different potential differing opinions on so many project elements that it's a lot of patience. It's a lot of, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and you listen a lot, you take it all in, and I feel like I've become a computer. Take it in, take it in, take it in, take it in, let it process, let it process, let it process. And ultimately you come out with a great solution. I mean, that's probably one of the bigger compliments I get on a fairly regular basis, is that I'm a good listener, starting with the community, the patient, family, and friend, their needs, because again, at the end of the day, building and being a part of these magnificent projects, at the end of the day, it is about the community and the people in that community that this healthcare setting is going to serve. And so sometimes, we can be, the consultant team can be over here having lots of challenging, differing opinions and challenges. And sometimes the best thing to do is just to bring it back to center and say, what's going to meet the needs of this community? that this hospital setting is going to be serving for the next 50, 100 years, possibly. Like when I did a big hospital up in Northern California in Carson City, 350,000 square foot new hospital. I mean, that was something that, what incredible honor. That still to this day, that project's been complete for many years now, but still what an honor knowing that I had a part to play in the healing of all the communities in Northern Nevada. This hospital will serve for maybe the next 100 years, even when I'm gone. That's the legacy that's going to be there, knowing what an impact that my talents, gifts, and knowledge and experience really made a difference in all those families for many generations. It really, at the end of the day, it's always an honor when I have selected to be a part of these projects. So
we've
I don't
been
know if I
friends for a
answered your
while.
specific question, but
That was actually perfect because you touched on a lot of the key points of
okay.
the 2 ears and 1 mouth, for
Yes.
sure,
Yes.
for great communication and for people to actually work things out. Because we've been friends for a while, I know you well, but there was something that was very impressive on your website that I'm going to read off, and I'd like to know why these pieces made a difference to you and your own organization. Okay. Interior design is about people. The company practice is anchored in the belief that design is a powerful tool, using it with thoughtfulness and responsibility. We help clients achieve their vision while enhancing the lives of those who live, work, visit, and play in the space. And what grabbed my attention, Deborah, is people, thoughtfulness, and responsibility, enhancing the lives of anyone that it touches. And that's the part I'm looking to like really get from you, not only from a design perspective, but design and working with people of various skill levels. How does that incorporate into the vision of your firm and doing all of this?
Well, I think I've already touched on a lot of it, because when there is varying levels of skills and ability, and the way I look at it, even if somebody that is either on another part of the team, whether it's the general contractor or the architect or one of the engineers, no matter what level of experience they have, they still have a depth and breadth that they bring to the project. And everybody's worth listening to because they all have their own passion and their purpose and their focus. And even though I've got significant level of experience in it, there's still a whole other level of experience that this person has had that can really be a valuable asset. And sometimes I look at projects and think about the brains and the experience, the brilliance that's in this room. I mean, if there's 5 to 10 people in the room and each one of them, even if maybe some only have 5 or 10 years experience, some have 30 or 40, collectively, there could be 300-400 years of experience in that room. And you really have to respect and understand that, even if someone's fairly new in the industry, you still have to give them a chance to bring in, because sometimes they're not knowing and not having the depth and breadth of experience. They can bring some jewels and gems into the project that you're like, good idea. Didn't really think about that one. Because again, that's the thing about every project that astounds me, is that no matter how long I've been in this, I'm always learning. And, again, we haven't even talked about the staff, working with the medical staff. I mean, that's another area that I've been acknowledged on, that I actually really listen to the staff, because you think about from the nurses to the physician's assistants to, all levels there, as well as executive management, as well as the medical doctors. there is a depth and breadth that they all have uniquely experienced working in a hospital setting. And so they bring valuable insight and knowledge and experiences that really help to fine tune. And furthermore, when I talk always about the end result is for the patient, family, and friends, but it's also about the staff, because they give it all. I mean, God bless the staff that, medical, the nurses, and all of the people that provide the day-to-day care to these patients. I also really think about them when I'm creating a physical environment that is, even though we want it to be aesthetic, has to be extremely durable, has to really meet rigorous infection control requirements. And and aesthetically, we want it comfortable. We want respite places, within, they call it, being on, and then being off, the camera, so to speak. And we have to create respite spaces for the staff to, sometimes they just have to disappear for a short time just to get themselves back together again, because it's very challenging what's going on. So that's just as important for me too, to make sure that the environment is supportive to the staff who really give it all, for their patients.
It's beautiful to hear you say that you delve into all the little pieces, including the staff that's there, the person that's walking through the hospital. Do you get to do that as you begin the project? Do you get to have input on not only the design, like the looks, the completed look? Do you get to have input in that and make?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of some of the initial kickoff meetings is every hospital has their infection control department. And so that's just a given. I'm always meeting with and talking to and diving into, what may be unique that they have found or experienced in their particular healthcare campus. I also meet with environmental services and dig down into, their past experiences, what's new, what's been a struggle. Even before anything is ever approved, there's always a high level first pass, past environmental services, past infection control department, to say, here's what's being proposed. Here are the specifications. Here's, all of the documentation, formal documentation from the manufacturers that include all of the critical, testing and data, so that everybody can clearly understand. And we get a review and approval. And then sometimes we even do mock-ups. I mean, quite honestly, most times we do a mock-up, whether it's a real-time installation of a potential flooring that could be used, say it's a bigger project, and we're going to use a particular flooring in all the patient rooms. And it's something they may not be familiar with, but we have absolute formal documentation of why we think this is the best solution. Yet to get environmental services, executive management, facilities department, healthcare comfortable, sometimes we'll arrange for a full-on mock-up so that they can live with it for a couple of months. I mean, we do that not only flooring, we sometimes do that with, depends on the situation. Fabrics, wall material, so that
I'm curious.
There's so much.
There is a lot, but I love what you're saying.
I actually really love my work, and this is grand. I love being able to answer these kind of questions.
And it's wonderful to be able to hear that, to hear how passionate you are about the work that you do and how you connect so well, because there's so much wisdom in that for people that are working on their own businesses or attempting to grow. My next biggest thing that I'm always impressed with is, how did your firm continue for so many years when there's been a lot of ups and downs in the industries?
Yes.
What is that it factor or the thing that allowed your firm to continue?
Well, I've been in the industry a long time. I mean, I started my office in 1995. And I really, well, I know for a fact that it was all the relationships that I had developed working in the corporate world. My last position before I started my company was a director of interior design and a corporate vice president for a large architecture firm of, I think there's about 60 people there or so. And under that roof was not only architects, but it was also full engineering, structural, mechanical, electrical. So I got extremely knowledgeable and really built phenomenal relationships with all of these people. And so when I started my own company, I got brought right into these projects with a lot of the same architects that I had developed wonderful friendships with while working under the same office. But inevitably, my industry people work for a while, and then they sometimes move on and develop their own. Sometimes they don't, but I'd say probably 50% of the people move on and develop their own firms. So all these architects, all of these engineers ended up, we just kept the relationships going. In my industry, it is significantly all about relationships. And so I was very fortunate when my very first project was we worked on a 235,000 square foot new patient tower for a hospital in Santa Maria. And we started that, and then within a year or two got another opportunity to work on a 300,000 square foot new a new hospital, Versity Gilbert Medical Center in Gilbert, Arizona. Same team, same architects. We started working on that one. And then along the way, this big project in Carson City, we got the opportunity there, and same team, same architect. In fact, I was so blessed on that Carson Tahoe Hospital project in Carson City. The architect contacted me on a Friday and said, "Hey, Deb, would you be interested in a 350,000 square foot brand new hospital in Carson City, Nevada? I've already talked to the executive management of the hospital about you, and they're on board. Are you ready for that?" Yeah. All I had to do was to go up there. He had already, because of the relationships and the credibility, all I had to do was fly up there, meet everybody, get a formal introduction, and away we went. And then after that, I had to do a competitive interview for, worked on a big hospital project up in Redwood City, Sequoia Hospital, Redwood City. But again, it was pretty much the same architects, the same engineers, and the clients were thrilled about that because it was an experienced team that really knew each other, got along really well, and some of the struggles and conflicts that can happen, a lot of that was minimized because we knew each other. We worked together so well. So I'm just very, very fortunate, Runa, very fortunate.
I love hearing this perspective because I know that this industry tends to be dominated by males. I've had a construction background where I ran my own flooring store and did the design work and some of that. So I understand how much male dominated it is. I'd love to hear your perspective because you're talking gigantic projects, lots of male. How do you tend to continue to fit in and be effective in an industry that could downplay?
Yes, and let's just say I've had many of an opportunity to when to zip it and just smile. And yet, a wilting flower is never going to survive in this industry. You have to be a strong, confident woman, and yet, not be very careful about tripping over that line as well, too. Initially, I can say, and I've said this many times over the years, I'm the youngest of 5, but the 2 older sisters and 2 older brothers. And my first training of learning how to work with and engage and be accepted was having two older brothers. It was my first training. And so at many levels, I can thank my brothers for, of course they harassed their little sister, but I also learned how to kind of manage that. I still remember my mom saying, Mom, tell them to give it a rest, quit harassing me. And she'd say, oh, Deb, that's just how they show how much they love you. I don't think so, Mom. I had to stop and pause for a moment going, really? That's showing how much they love me. Okay. And yet seriously being able to, and let's just say I also grew up kind of a tomboy, and I like playing in the streets, ball, whatever. I wanted to do what the guys were doing. That looked like more fun. And so I also think just that natural, I just flow and I just have a good time. And so, but some of that foundational is what I think really made the difference in order to me. But honestly, at times I've pondered it as well too, because, there's been some times where I have had to say, oh, excuse me, there is a woman in the room right now. There is a woman present. Oh my goodness. Because when I worked for the architectural firm, because I was a director of interior design and the vice president there, 90% of the time it would just be me going out on the job site with all the guys. And the average job site would have, 4 to 5 to 6 guys and me as a part of, we would be on a job site maybe for a series of meetings for a couple of days. And so again, you just kind of learn how to recognize when it's best to hold them and fold them, and when you just smile. Best thing is not to say anything at all other than good night, I'll see you in the morning.
Even to this day.
Even to this day. It's definitely improved dramatically, though, as many years as I've been in the industry. Oh, yes, definitely.
Curiosity. Do you feel that you still need to prove yourself more because you're a female? And I'm asking that because I've interviewed other wonderful females in different industries that are male dominated. And I would hear this term a lot, that they need to still really showcase who they are, that they're always on. Do you feel that you need to do that, or have you gotten way past it?
Well, I would say there's an initial first impression and the first couple of initial meetings, and especially in a project where I don't know any of the players. And so that's again where the listening, 2 ears, 1 mouth, where I listen, take notes, sometimes literally, and sometimes just tuck that one back in the brain. And so it might take a couple of meetings before most of the other team, if majority of them are men, will realize that I have a lot to offer. I think part of the challenge that I have faced in the industry, and some of the teams are better in understanding this than others, is that I offer a whole lot more than just colors, finishes, and materials. A whole lot more. I mean, when you've been involved in so many of my projects, even very early on, were in latest and greatest new technology. I have a gift of understanding planning and spatial arrangements and planning, and I'm very organized and structured in that sort of way. And so I got the amazing opportunities to, in healthcare, there's always new technology coming out. And so, to be able to be on the leading edge and being involved in these projects, the latest and greatest break in technology and the newest strategies and the newest, depending on whether it is, amazing equipment mean, all of us are wondering how AI is going to be affecting our work. And, you know, in the next 3 to 5 years, as quickly as things move along, how is that really going to affect what we're doing? I mean, it's more of instead of going, uh-oh, what's going to happen? It's more like, yeah, let's see what's going to happen. Let's see how much more we can improve these environments for the patient's family and friends. So, again, I go off in so many tangents. Did I actually answer that?
Yes, you did. You did actually. But you brought up something that is very unique. So many individuals with businesses or lives that are full tend to always talk about time management and being able to deal with it all. You obviously have lots of projects that you're touching on daily basis, weekly basis, with a variety of people. What is the way that you have found that you can manage things well? Because you've talked about being organized and taking notes. What are some of the things that you go, this has been a key to actually helping run the business and run the different projects in a format that makes it conducive?
Well, from a more of a collective experience versus any specific technology or enhancement like that, that's kind of, I can go off on that one too. But the first thing that came to my mind is that I've learned to work smarter, not harder. Because in the nature of the projects that I work on, change is inevitable. Stopping and starting, budget challenges. I mean, I'm in healthcare design. When, you know, the shutdown we experienced in 2020 happened, it was kind of like, oh, wait, everything went on the shelf collectively. But that was very unusual. But in general, you know, just having enough experience and foresight now, having been involved in so many projects, you know, the average is 100, 200,000 square foot. But having been through this with so many projects, so many team players, and they're not always the same. A lot of the core, like right now, I'm even working on a new building project that's a 5-story medical building for children. It's a project. I haven't worked with this architecture firm for about 10 years. But again, it's all the relationships. And yet, probably my earlier years, I would have eagerly dove into design, would have been going through and would have burned a lot of hours and ineffective management and use of the time. And so now what I'm doing is just holding back until, you know, we really get a good solid direction going. So again, that's the whole concept of working smarter versus harder, and really being focused on an appropriate use, you know, because even though it's my time to use, it's being respectful. It's the client's time and the fees and hours that the executive team is anticipating out of it. So I would say that it's something that I wished would have kicked in a little bit earlier in terms of but that some of it just comes from basic raw experience of, you know, going through so many different projects and experiencing challenges that went above and beyond.
Thank you. I think that's going to be really helpful for some people to work smarter, not harder, to really pay attention. I'm going to shift it a little bit, Deb. I know we've talked about how when you design, you've got basically everybody in mind with the design so that it works for them. You went through your own health challenges with cancer. Would you mind sharing about that? And then I'm going to love to hear how that might have impacted even how you run Brandt Design Group.
Well, I think that was my first lesson in working smarter, not harder. I am very passionate. I really care. I love my work. The nature of this kind of work, I mean, you could work night and day on it, especially with a creative mind. It's going all the time. So sometimes to like dial it down and say, it's time to take a break and rest now. And so I think that played into maybe too much and not taking care of myself, and self-care is when I had this cancer scare hit me. That was in 2005, and breast cancer. And fortunately, the mammograms worked and they found it early. And so they were able to go in for a lumpectomy. I took out the first lymph node just to make sure it had actually not moved through my body. And I went through 5 weeks of radiation. And that at that point in time is probably when I was the busiest I've ever been in my life. I probably had about collectively between all my projects, I probably had about almost 1 million square foot, either under design, under construction, at all levels. And I had people, I had a full team working for me at the time too. And so I think it was then when I really understood I've got to take better care of myself and manage things. But first of all, starting with myself, because if I don't have my health, none of the rest of it matters. So yeah, thanks for asking, because I even turned away. Had been approached about a 4-year contract with the Navy at that time, and had gotten to the next level of interview where basically they were going to retain me for the 4-year contract. And it was about that time that this health issue came, and I had to say no to them. So, sometimes you have to make some tough choices, but through that time period, I didn't know where this was going to go. And even the radiation, I didn't know how it was going to affect me, and if I was going to be able to function at a high enough level to be able to manage my own projects that I currently, already had committed to. So yeah, there's, I have to constantly be wearing 10 hats at any given day, time, week, month, depending on what's going on. And that time I had to take all those hats off and say, what do I need to do to take better care of myself?
Did you find that you were maybe lighter in the way that you deal with things after going through that scare? How did it affect you running an organization like your own company?
I realized that it's not all on my shoulders. Mm-hmm. That I was so blessed by the outpouring of love from the architects, from the contractors, from the engineers, from the owners, and flowers and cards and gifts and well-wishing. And, sometimes I have a tendency to take too much on my shoulder, and, because I care so much. And yet I realize, I'm a part of a team of people who really care. And first and foremost, we're human beings first and foremost. And we have to be there for one another. And so that was a really touching experience as well, too, when I realized, I didn't have to carry all this burden, which I just have a tendency to do. I don't have to carry this. Life isn't meant to be a solo entrepreneur sitting on an island. I've got caring, loving people, at all levels, that are there for me. So that was a phenomenal transition in my life at that time, which is what I think I really needed to experience. So there was many blessings that came out of, most fortunately, turned out not to be that serious, but even collectively with all the rest of that, I was very fortunate to have so much love and support.
I'm curious, when you first heard the news of it, and because you have so many projects, like you said, going on. What do you think made the biggest difference for you to go, I need to show up for me? Because there are so many executives and so many people that put on the hat of businesses first, and that's all that matters. So I'm attempting to draw out of you, with so many, what went through your own head at that moment?
Well, initially, again, because my mindset is, I take so much responsibility for everything on my shoulders, that I still remember the day that I got off the phone call saying, you've been diagnosed with cancer, but don't be alarmed. I always remember that. I think it was a Thursday. We already have the doctor scheduled to see you tomorrow morning. Wow. And right away, the folks who literally the people who work for me were just right there, sitting with me, crying with me, hugging me. And, again, it was for someone who can be a little too intense and take too much on her shoulders. It really made the difference. I mean, one of the designers that worked for me, I mean, she sat for 8 hours in the recovery room because the particular anesthesia that I had gotten just was not flowing out of my body. They finally had to put a drip system on me just to start flushing it out. I could literally not stand up. She waited by my bedside. This is one of my designers. She's waited by my bedside for 8 hours. Kept saying, she's got kids. Like, you gotta, but Dad. Yeah. That's what Miss Hard Charging got it all. I can handle it all. Needed was a dose of.
So how would you rate relationships when it comes to business? Like on a scale, everything.
From that's why even being on a job site, where from the patient's family and friends to the staff to the engineers I'm working with to all levels, everybody has an important part that they play, in bringing this project to fruition. And all of the responsibility doesn't lie on any one particular individual's shoulders. I mean, just because we care so much, that is kind of a natural, I would say that's a natural trait that a lot of architects and designers struggle with. Because, we got in this industry because of a passion and a purpose. And that resonates with us in really it resonates with everything that we do.
Deborah, I have a few more questions, but how do people contact you? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, my website is Brandt Design Group, of course, .brandtdesigngroup.com. And my email is dbrandt@brandtdesigngroup.com. Or you can always call me at 760-749-1500. That's my office number.
I love that because you don't often hear people give away their phone number easily. So thank you for doing that. Deborah, if I put you in front of a group right now of 20-year-olds, young individuals, and I'm going to say specifically female individuals that are beginning to launch their careers and their lives, what would you like to say to these wonderful young individuals?
Well, first of all, I have been in front of those kind of individuals. Many years ago, I taught at a private design college here in San Diego. It's called the Design Institute. And I taught the graduating senior class project. And my average student was a young female in her 20s. Some people were there, it was the second careers, they might be a little bit older, but the average. And so for 6 years, I did that, taught the graduating senior class project. And again, I forgot at times when I would get a paycheck once a month, oh, that's what I get paid for this. It just felt like it was a full circle experience to inspire people, because quite honestly, one of the big reasons why I'm a healthcare designer, I graduated Long Beach State with a bachelor's degree in design. My senior year, senior class project was taught by a working professional who most of his experience was in healthcare. Literally, that's what changed my life at that point because of him. Being in healthcare design, I wanted to do something. I'm more altruistic, generally in my nature. I want to do something that is going to benefit mankind, leave a legacy, make a difference, change people's lives for the better. And so when I was going through design, you could be hotel, restaurant, whatnot. What really resonated with me was in healthcare design. So, how much it's pleased me that I have actually had students come back to me and say, because of your class, it resonated so much with me to make a difference in people's lives that I chose healthcare design as well. And I think, that life is good when you do something like that. But back to your question, though, what I would always tell my students is, even though you're going to get a degree from an amazing college, it's really going to differentiate and set you apart. Whatever task you're given, put as much focus and attention into it as if it was your own, and be a sponge. Work for don't worry about I know pay's important, and yet work for the best company with you resonate, and just be a sponge. Take it all in, take it all in, take it all in. And even working for different firms, I recommend in the beginning, don't stay with one firm and just grow old with them. I think, especially in the first 10 years, don't jump around either, but maybe stay at a firm 2 to 3, 4 years and get a depth and breadth of experience, because it's a whole different experience working for a small design firm than it is working for an architectural firm with, mechanical, electrical, structural, that it is working. I mean, even sometimes it's very interesting to work, if you want to do healthcare, work for a hospital. There's a lot of hospitals that have their own in-house interior designers and architects. And there's just, and when you work for an architecture firm or design firm, whoever the leadership is, everything rises and falls on leadership. And every firm is run a little bit differently because it's a very creative industry. And some people are more gifted in the running of a company versus a very creative. And so, it's a very interesting, very liquid type of an environment, but whoever you work for, just absorb, because, and then really focus on the relationships, building those relationships, even if you're not going to maybe eventually realize you're not going to be at this firm for a long time. Don't burn any bridges, no matter how you felt like you might or may not have been treated. You're in a learning curve. So stay open, stay vulnerable, but continue as best as you can. Obviously, when you move on to a different firm, it may not be quite as easy to stay in relationship, but you're going to see these people that you worked with prior at industry events. Keep those relationships, build on them in whatever way, because this industry is actually fairly small. And it's amazing to me how many times I have run into people, whether at an industry event or somebody knows somebody. And, and it really, that's what has surprised me about some of the younger students. They got so wound up about how much money and frustrated with this person and that person. And I'm thinking, even though you have a degree in design, this industry is a very hands-on. And so when you have a degree in design, my personal experience, some of it is the icing on the cake. You know, you're seeing that. But now what you're going to do is you're going to learn all the ingredients that goes into that cake. You're going to learn how to mix it just properly. You're going to learn what temperature. Sometimes you'll burn it, and sometimes it won't be done well enough. And then sometimes there's the perfect combination. But you have to understand what it takes to make that cake. Put the icing over the top and maybe even decorate it with a few things. But it's a very dynamic industry that I would say for the average individual probably takes at least 3 to 5 years of surviving and going through some pretty significant projects before you'll start to collectively understand how it works, and even where your strengths and talents and abilities can be appropriately utilized, and you can, you know, and then and again, still being open to next levels of, but still, you know, make sure that you really are focusing on becoming a team player, and always understand everything rises and falls on leadership. And sometimes you may not like how things are running. Well, okay, learn from that person, but realize maybe eventually you're going to move on. That's okay. Again, long answer. Did I actually answer?
Yes, you actually did. And I hope that the listeners actually grab all these nuggets that you put in there. And for me, what stood out is it's such a small industry. I think
Yes.
every industry is a small industry these days.
Like
Our
like
entire
small.
world is a small world, and everything that we put out is going to come back to us in some way or another. Someone is looking, someone is connected to
Yes.
somebody.
Especially with social media the way it is now, and you know, all these ways to communicate and whatnot, that yeah, where we used to say, you know, the circle was what, within 4 people of knowing somebody. Now I think it's within 2 people you're going to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. And so you've got to realize it's you can't burn anything, you know, no matter how rough you might have had it going through a particular situation or whatnot. You take it as a learning experience, but the most important thing is you continue to build and maintain on those relationships and friendships you've already established.
Well, my last question to you. I know there's a ton in your career that we can talk to, and you've done consulting, you've done education, and you're still obviously doing the design.
Mm-hmm.
Which one, or is there something in each one of them that you go, this was a wonderful thing to be involved in it because it gave me this? Like education, what did that do for you teaching?
Just to inspire the next generation. How exciting that is. And then having these students. I mean, I just had a conversation just a few weeks ago with a gal that was one of my students, and she's wildly successful. And it's amazing. It's fantastic. And as far as my actual work, to be, I mean, right now, like I said, I'm working on a 5-story medical building for Loma Linda University Medical Center. And the project is 100%, it's about 105,000 square foot new construction. And it's all for the children.
Mm.
Oh my gosh. It's my favorite patient is kiddos. And I'm such some level, I'm such a kid at heart. And so the opportunities for what we're going to be able to create, this is a clinical setting. It's not the acute care hospital. And yet it's all aspects of all kinds of level of care, the medical doctors who will be housed in this building. And, you know, and yet the whole thing is about creating an environment that's uplifting, supportive for our littlest ones, you know, which sometimes it can be very, very scary for the little ones, you know, going in. Obviously, mommy and daddy or auntie or grandma are there. And yet you want to create positive distractions, engaging, uplifting, fun, mind expanding, that's age appropriate. And yet, this building will be able to take from the youngest to up to, I think, 17, 18, be the oldest. Well, 18 technically not, but 17. But the average age that will most likely will be probably the 8 to 12-year-old. But I just admit, again, I'm just feel so honored to be a part of that. And even the other project I'm working on is for the Veterans Association. It's a dialysis unit. And again, what a phenomenal opportunity that is when we think about all of our veterans and how obviously some have given them all, but some of them have lost, have serious health issues and whatnot. And so, creating an environment for these folks, who are coming in for treatment. Probably the average person comes in for treatment of 2 to 3 times a week, 2 to 4 hours at a time. And what I can do to help create an environment that's more supportive and uplifting for them as well. So I mean, I could just go on and on.
Love the incredible impact, honestly. And again, the passion that you speak about it. What about the consulting side, Deb? What is it that you enjoy and makes a significance in that? Education, you made a positive impact.
Yeah. Well, at this stage, because I have, my projects range from a 22-story hospital in Bangkok to a 350,000 square foot new hospital in Nevada to this new medical center in Gilbert, Arizona to the 5-star. I mean, I've done work on the Navajo reservation. There's been so much. And I actually do non-medical work as well. My most recent project was the corporate offices for a water district. So, I do non-healthcare as well. But, I think where I would be a benefit as a consultant is if there's troubleshooting, that needs to be assessed. Hey, a project has progressed along to a certain point. In fact, I got contacted about 1.5 years ago to step into kind of a frying pan situation. And yet they needed someone with some collectively big experience in order to be able to step into and understand what it was going to take to develop a team and to listen and engage and really quickly assess the situation and come up with some project management solutions. Because again, even though I am a designer, I think probably some of my collectively, because of everything I've done, is the project management skills, abilities, and learning how to foster and create a collaborative environment upfront among the project's many diverse professionals. Learning and I understand what time management, how critical it is to meet project deadlines and risk management, addressing potential issues that may be arising, balancing the ever-present budget. There's always a budget. And and then after each phase there's a reassessment of the budget and learning how to drill in and take a hard look at what may have to be released and let go of. And sometimes I've had clients saying, oh well, you're a designer, that no, I mean, if anything, that's another one of my gifts and talents is I really have learned how to assess earlier on because of all my experience. I can assess earlier on whether or not a particular aspect of a project's development is really going to be able to meet the budget or not. And yet on the other side of it, like the most recent project I'm working on, this 5-story medical building, I ended up doing what might typically have happened in the design development phase. I actually developed a very big, strong package in the schematic phase because sometimes it isn't budgeted early enough on, and then there's budgeting issues. So I set a parameter at very early stage so that the contractor, his his cost estimator could really understand the level the client was anticipating seeing for this project. And so, I mean, there's just, conflict resolution. I mean, there's just so much. And again, I'm a real strong proponent of a team player and great communication and maintaining that. There is going to be misunderstandings. There is going to be conflict. And so, diving in there and not being able to, not being afraid of approaching challenging situations and really dialing down the conflict and really understanding, what's really behind this. Because there's oftentimes what you see on the surface is not really what is driving this. And so it's, staying connected, persevering. I have a real talent and gift of perfect perseverance and overcoming no matter what the obstacle is. And so as a consultant there's just collectively so much that I can offer that goes beyond what most people think as an interior designer. Colors, finishes, and furniture. Yeah, I can do that too. But I think collectively there's so much more that we can help on, some potentially really challenging parts and pieces of projects.
Deb, I so appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time. I know there's a lot of wonderful pieces in this for people to really delve into and decipher so that they can come out better in whatever it is that they're working on. Is there anything that you'd like to say that I may not have asked you so we don't get off this podcast and you go, well, Rima didn't ask me this. Is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners that you go, they really need to think of this?
Rima, you're such an amazing individual, and I've listened to so many more of your podcasts that even now I've experienced this positive energy that you bring to it and this calm and this peace. And I think we've touched on way more than I'd even anticipated. So I'm sure there'll be something, once or twice that I'll say, should have brought that one up. But I really, because I talked about teaching and what a really wonderful experience that was. I talked about my clients. I've got hospital executives that I haven't done any work with in 10 and 15 years, and we're still friends, and we chat and we visit. And if you're ever in town, you best look me up. I'll be so. Again, it's just this whole industry, so many of them is again, it's all about the friendships and the relationships and caring for one another and being there for one another. So
that's perfect. Thank you. I appreciate you.
And I really appreciate you, Rima. This has been wonderful.
My pleasure. And to our incredible viewers and listeners, please remember, our attitude always determines our altitude. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode.
Thank you, everyone.